Games are not reality. A statement hardly surprising, I'm sure we all understand. The days of old are not the days of today, but let's consider what a day may be. Are you truly nostalgic for these old games, or are you nostalgic towards the surrounding past? The life I'm living now is a far better time than the 2000s were, so I can be certain in my answer. There's only one game that fills me with a longing for a time and place. Aisp was an MMO, a fictional world that I spent about a year of my life in. It was a false Akihabara that I, a person who has never set foot in Akiba proper, grew up in. It's where I got my name. It was fiction, it was a game, but it was real. Culture is a bubble. I grew up in a place where, well, walk an hour in any direction and you'd find people who spoke differently, who felt to me like they'd come from a different world. My world was a rainy seaside town, and zooming in a bit, a single cobbled street. It was a busy place, full of tourists, as I've said before, but the passing footsteps were like raindrops to the sea. An ocean will still be there tomorrow. Think back to the age of Goldeneye by the Hortis, not the Campbell, of Martin Kind. I lived on a market street, old England style. A cafe on the corner, a place to buy your morning newspaper. The old sweet shop, a store for fruit and one for meat, one for fish, one for grain. The smell of incense was always strong. All of them were run by families, ordinary people whom you knew. It came with a slight hippie vibe, I would say, as the owners were either around for the 60s or were the children of that generation. Step into a restaurant and you'd see paintings old a few hundred years, plaques dedicated to a sailor decades dead, to a fisherman of 100 years ago, to a poet over 1,000 years old. You would hear stories, fables of a man lost at sea or a haunted lighthouse capping a rickety wooden pier. The lady whose hair caught on fire burning her away, of a mound where Fae rest in peace, where one false step could curse your luck. The black dog Barghest who roamed the streets, heralding death with the sound of chains, history and loss. A step away, the beach, where sailors, fishers, rowers, swimmers, and all the town's life would meet. Old ships, 17th century, would rest to garner praise. A lifeboat would speed by, saving kids from the waves. 200 steps from home stood a church where kings and queens were laid to rest, settled by Anglo-Saxons, raided by the Danes, bombed by the Germans. It's older than the word England itself. In summer, busking musicians would liven the streets, and bunting would fill the world with colour. In winter, the cobbled roads grew quiet. Then, from the buildings high, bright fairy lights would paint the place with a festive charm at night. If I ask myself, was any of that fun? The answer is clear. No, not really, but it was home to me. The passing footsteps were indeed like raindrops to the sea, but one day, our oceans will be sand. Nothing will forever be. By the time of my little sister's birth, that world was gone. Some locals had been priced out, others had passed on. Local shops shut down to make way for conglomerates. Smartphones replaced our hangout spots. History and loss. My sister never got to live in that world. It's gone. Sometimes I wonder why. I ponder who or what to blame, or consider how it may return, but the reality is, the past is dead. The culture I still think of as my own, it existed for the briefest of moments. It had no name, and neither the memories nor the feelings of those days will mean anything to you. I don't want them to. Let them die. Indeed, nothing will forever be. Even a wave lasts mere moments, yet man will try to ride it for as long as he can. Culture is a space. Introducing the internet. Heard of it? I was a noob, really. It hadn't been long since I'd played Shuffle and Canon. The Clannad anime had just wrapped up, and I recall browsing a usual forum. The early 2009 news cycle there brought my attention to a curiosity. Aisp was an in-development MMO that combined the world of Shuffle with the worlds of Clannad and Capo II. I took the time to read the original Capo first, but by the time I was done, Aisp was out. I used to try and replicate game CGs when I was first learning to draw, but apparently the only one that survived 16 years on the internet is the Capo one. My mum might have some of the others on paper somewhere, but if you thought I was bad at art now, just know I've come a long way. When I say MMO, I bet a decent chunk of you automatically append RPG to it in your mind, but Aisp wasn't that. To be honest, calling it a game would be generous. It was a social MMO. Think Habbo Hotel or Club Penguin Second Life? Wow, why are all of the English examples I can think of so odd? Put plainly, Aisp was a fancy chat room. A big 3D space full of players, each one with a human avatar, with additional microtransaction incentives by way of dolls, artificial lifeforms serving as companions. The player and their customizable doll were dropped into the setting of one of the involved IPs, Clannad, Shuffle, and Capo II. The dolls would match the style of the IP you chose, and they were like a partner in a sort of minimalist Love Plus scenario. A player could hang out with the AI alone if they were that much of a loner, and they'd still have a decent time interacting with the game. For a bit. Each setting also got a unique character who was designed to help players out early on, and as time passed, they began to factor into the game's short story missions, all presented in visual novel fashion. Sometimes these stories would include characters from the three relevant visual novels, and sometimes these characters would even be voiced. The voice actors of Aisp's three unique ladies would appear on frequent radio show streams, which may or may not be the cause for why I often watch those kinds of things even today. The streams, as well as those previously mentioned microtransactions, were handled by Dwango's Nico Nico Doga, and so the online infrastructure of the game was incredibly dependent on that service. You could view the game as one big advertisement platform for Nico Nico, but therein lay an appeal, I believe. It was a hodgepodge of otaku fandom stuff. It was also blatantly pay to win in some regards, not meaningful ones, but still, they really wanted players to spend. Gotcha. The three independent settings joined together in the hub town, Akihabara, a small recreation of the Akihabara of the times. Akiba, of course, had been going through its own changes during the 2000s, transforming a subculture hub of PCs and PC games into a flanderized place of exploitative pandering, which, well, that's yet another street I'm on the loss of. But Aisp's interpretation of the town was more a glorified reflection of the two identities, openly weeby, advertising eroge, but with that lingering sense of sanitized business. In this fictionalized Akihabara, players could gather together to interact, show off their accounts, and sometimes engage in activities. Most of these activities were pretty lame and one-note in my opinion, sometimes even limited to certain times of the year. Plus, I was a foreigner playing this Japan-only MMO with almost no knowledge of Japanese, so the social side of things was intimidating. I'm pretty sure I was playing at a sub 7 FPS most of the time, which made things a bit harder. This game was not built for the average bishoujoge game computer user. There was an English fanbase, albeit small, but I didn't interact with them much save for a rare forum post whenever the servers were down, so maybe I am that much of a loner. That being said, watching crowds of people gather together, converse, emote, and compete was very fun, particularly if the participants had blogs I could stalk or detailed profiles I could gaze at. It wasn't the real Akihabara, of course, but that digital space housed real people, and with them came a real culture. I was surrounded by what I loved. If there was a new game, a new anime, a new song, people would be talking about it, and they'd be excited. Well, that or they'd be talking about food. Despite my antisocial ways, I did end up becoming friends with a few of the familiar names. I fondly recall blowing someone's mind by casually telling a Kinnikuman joke. They didn't expect a foreigner to know that one. And I knew this guy who would change his doll's outfit constantly, always holding photo shoots. You'd walk down the street and there he was, doing his thing. You had your superfans. One user, I swear, just wanted people to read Negima. That was his purpose in life, and I still haven't read it. Sorry. It was always nice to bump into characters who looked straight out of Shuffle while I was walking around with a custom Clannad character design. The novelty of that never wore off for me. What little voiced content there was, I could enjoy, and there were a few English language summaries for some of the content too, which really helped. The game's sense of humour was very similar to Kami no Miso Shiru Sekai's, my favourite manga and anime at the time. Kinda cheesy, kinda kiddie, but hey, that's what I enjoyed. It's from that age of stories like Seto no Hanayome or Nogizaka Haruka no Himitsu, the second of which had just finished airing at the time, and who could forget Lucky Star? And remember, Nico Nico, the month-to-month of AI Space, was intimately tied to the video platform, and that meant you could watch videos in-game, buy a TV, put it in your room, and bam, you've got an in-game video streaming service. Now, if only there were a TV in each of the large gathering areas so that everyone could get together and watch things. Oh, there was. It would buffer a lot, but it was 2009, so we were used to that. But as you might be able to tell from my description, there was little meat on the bone of this product, and the novelty of it being set within familiar environments with familiar characters didn't lead to anywhere near as much fan service and what-if scenarios as you'd think. Was it fun? I don't know. Was there anything to do? Sometimes, but often no. It was an empty game that didn't last very long, but it was home. To give some fair perspective, I would say similar things about Animal Crossing, but I assuredly spent at least 100 hours playing that game on my DS back in the day, so that was a far less social experience. For those who know me well, you'll know that I later wasted 2 years of my life on a similarly contentless MMO as soon as AI Space shut down. The amount of stuff to do didn't matter. If you've already tied yourself to an MMO, it's hard to escape it. Every person who's been addicted to an MMO will tell you that those days were equally the best and worst time of their lives. These simulated spaces become a home to those who spend time in them. And from the start of the 2010s, these sort of digital worlds were where I lived. Still, it's natural to move on, eventually. At a certain point, I think the only thing keeping people attached was the customizable dolls. They were good simulations at the time, and you could alter their appearances, their personality, even script them to a degree, and they played a leading role in the story, so your custom character was interacting with heroines from actual big-name games. No other game provided this at the time, whether MMO or single player, and for me, that young me, I loved the mundane, unvoiced interactions that would sometimes pop up. A character you love suddenly appearing on screen to say hello, good morning, Merry Christmas. Maybe that's because I could understand those easy interactions though. Still, that's another thing you likely won't find at all anywhere in visual novels, even now. Inoue Ryoko meets Artificial Girl, that's how I describe it. But the population was flagging. At the start of 2011, things still felt exciting. Bushiroad, one of the companies ever present in the game's marketing efforts, had just launched their Cardfight Vanguard franchise, which I loved. Meanwhile, Steins Gate fever was at an all-time high, with an anime adaptation beginning in April, along with its own marketing storm centered around Akiba. Now that was a special one for me. Vocaloid was really kicking it up a notch with Krypton Future Media's live concerts, putting Miku, Luca, Rin, and Len on stage to mind-blowing effect. Eroge may have reached the other side of the bell curve, but the culture was still strong. I'd never wanted it to end, yet despite the time I had with it, I didn't stick with AI Space until the end. The writing was on the wall, the game wouldn't last for much longer. The game was set to be shut down in June of 2011, but to be honest with you, I'd stopped playing it months prior, before the closure was announced even. I hadn't planned to stop, of course. As I said before, I didn't want it to end. The game was like a home to me, and as brief as my time there may have been, a daily routine is comforting. But It all came crashing down. A wave may last mere moments, yes, but some moments are hard to forget. I awoke one morning in the privilege of safety to news of a tsunami, the great East Japan earthquake. The people I'd been playing with until now, were they safe? There was no way to communicate, no way to ask, no way to know. If the game servers came back up, were that ever a priority? Would the usual names still be there, logged in and waiting for other players? I didn't know the answer. I never would. It was over. And that's what mattered. For reasons beyond my control, the daily life I'd been leading came to an end, and I couldn't even stop to internalize it. In another place, far from my real home, the ones I'd been living alongside were in danger. There was no one to blame, no reason to regret, no hope of going back. What are you even supposed to feel? That was how it came to an end. That innocent place of mine. It had a name, and maybe my memories and feelings of that game will mean something to you. Maybe not in this exact form, likely with a different end, but surely we've all had that. A place once had that can never be again. I'm sure if there was real demand and maybe some cash involved, some smart cookie could get a private server up and running. Maybe the world of AI space could be reborn, but the world is not enough. The people, the trends, the memories, they weren't made by the game. You didn't even have to play the game for that. If you were browsing Nico Nico Doga, listening to Vocaloid Sung Toho remixes and geeking out over Haruhi, Jisenjo, Koihime Muso, and Zero no Tsukaima, you were there with me, living that life. The culture was larger than a place, and you, like me, will be aware that even though all of those IPs still exist, the place and time is already gone. The past is dead. Very little of it remains, and day by day, there'll be less and less rubble to reminisce over. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck there, lost, unable to look away, drifting back and forth between the past and the today. It might sound strange for me to say in a magazine made to praise old games, but I need to emphasize this point. Don't look back. Sure, we can't return to every game, but for most of them, we can. We have the luxury of being able to boot up old software with ease, whenever we wish, on all kinds of systems, but they're all fiction. In reality, yesterday is dead and it'll never return. Every day is a new farewell. The things I've told you today are retellings, once heard by my brain from a younger me, who remembered better, felt stronger, and really, really cared. With each remembrance, they dilute a little, like raindrops to an ocean. Emotions boiled down to words only to be regurgitated again and again, becoming fables from a storyteller who turns haze into entertainment. Each time a detail gets lost here or there, I can't even remember their names. It's a degradation of the heart. The town I grew up in is gone. The fictional Akihabara I lived in is gone. The real Akihabara we love is gone, and the days before the waves hit are gone. All they are stories now. The tides of change will come for you soon, so don't look back. Some things will always be here for you, but you won't always be here. Not you, these streets, these places, these people, not even these memories. What matters today will mean little in due time, but tomorrow never ends, so don't look back. Don't take these days for granted, be ready to leave them behind.